Hey guys, Walt Wagner here with TAV, and we are doing the final rendition of this company Ram that we've had, and has come time to go ahead and sell this one and move on to the next company project for the next couple years. So we wanted to do one last walk around video on this truck, kind of explaining what we finally settled on, how we really wanted the finished product to be with this truck, the build out, the functionality of everything with light placement, suspension, camper, and bed. So what we're going to do here is explain kind of what we're working with on the back of the truck, because it's changed so many times. But the final version of this, I'm going to talk about the bed and the uniqueness of this particular bed and the design thought that went into this. So this is a flatbed truck. It is a flatbed conversion. This Ram is the Mega Cab Ram, so it had from the factory had a 6.5 foot bed and a steel bed. And when you have a factory bed, there's nothing behind the bed sides. It's just empty space, or just air. And the front of the bed is a structural piece if you were to put a camper or something on top of it. But at the back of the bed, where the tailgate is, the corners of the bed don't have any structural integrity to it or support like the front of the bed would. So a lot of times when you put a camper, the weight of a camper on top of the bed rails, it can tend to push those corners out. So how we're remedying that is a couple different versions of this flatbed from Dirtbox Overland. Now, what's really cool about this bed, for one, it's aluminum. You figure, I haven't weighed the factory bed yet at 6.5 feet long, but this bed is actually an 8-foot tray. It's a 8-foot tray on the factory bed mounts, but it also only weighs about 400 pounds. So that's probably a little less than a factory steel bed, and the bumper that was on here as well. So because the factory bumper's not here. So for one thing, you've already got a little bit of weight savings there, but you've drastically opened up your lockable storage. So on this one, from the extruded floor of the bed itself, below that you have a lockable box, and these are a compression latch. So when you turn it and you pull this down, you can see that it pulls the cabinet in. There's a gasket here that compresses as it pulls itself in. You can kind of see how it works. When you pull that down, this whole latch moves inward and pulls pressure on the top of this. So the hinge itself allows positive pressure on the bottom of the gasket, so as you close it and you pull that down, it pulls pressure around the whole gasket all the way around. And it's also lockable. So, and all of these cores match throughout the entire camper, with the exception of the drawer. That's a different style latch, so it has a different key. But all of these keys are the same. Kind of moving back a little bit, the fender has been redesigned. So this opening here obviously is large enough to fully compress a 40-inch tire. Toyo actually has a new 42-inch tire, so you could actually completely compress a 42-inch tire into this and not hit the fender at all. So the new version of the fender comes down all the way down to the bottom of the rear box, all the way down to the bottom of the front box, and closes in up inside here, so it's easy to clean out and things like that. And kind of moving directly back, I'm also going to point out too, there's a running light here. So when your parking lights come on at night, this will come on and you can see that in your mirror, and then you have one right at the very back corner of the bed. So the rear corner box is pretty nice layout. The way Tao had designed this from the factory, this can be very easily removed, this little shelf in here. The nice thing about this is it kind of forces you to organize a little bit better, but you can just undo a couple bolts and remove this whole shelf and you have a large box by itself here. I tend to keep a little bit of recovery gear, things like that, all nicely tucked away inside here. And this has the exact same compression latch, pulls it nice and tight, and everything is up and out of the way. With this bed being so much longer, you can see what your departure angle is here. It's drastic. Your factory bumper would be bolted in down here. You can see where the bumper actually gets bolted to. So it would actually be sitting down here or a little bit lower. So you can see how much more ground clearance you have even on an 8-foot tray. This opening right here serves a couple purposes. It's a step for one, if you wanted to use that as a step, but he has designed a bracket that mounts in here. Right now that's being printed so we can test it. But this is where your blind spot monitor sonar will go. That's usually inside the factory taillight. So that can be unbolted from the factory taillight and wired right into the truck's factory harness. So all of your sensors and backup camera and everything functions just like it would stock. This is a limited trim level, so it's got all the sensors and cameras and everything that comes with the factory truck. So with this bed, all of that works like factory. Kind of moving back right around the corner here. Another cool thing about these beds being as modular as they are, everything's extrusion throughout this entire bed. So this corner, if you were to damage that box or the fender or anything, you can unbolt it and replace just the box. And the extrusion is extremely strong. So even the taillight housing, this whole corner right here can just be unbolted and then swapped out. The taillight itself is a DOT approved taillight. So you've got your reverse, turn signal, brake light, and running lights all in this one taillight here. And it's also kind of protected because it's recessed back into the corner. We tend to do some of our own things when it comes to lighting. You can also see right here our factory backup sensors, parking sensors right here. They just plug right into the factory harness all the way across. But what you can see here with our lighting is we can, with this being aluminum, we can cut this open real easily, this opening, and then flush mount our Baja Designs Squadron Sport, and that's in a work scene pattern. So it's a very, very wide beam pattern back here. And it illuminates really nice for your camera, but you can also see out of your rearview mirrors at night. It lights everything up back behind you. Moving up just a little bit, you can see the grooves of these of the extrusion itself. We are able to mount our Baja Designs S1. This is our chase light or a work light if you want, but we can drill a hole in the back of the extrusion and tuck our wire away to where you can't even see it. So it's very nice to be able to hide all of your wiring and have it run in a safe place where it's out of harm's way. But it makes for an overall clean look and functional look. So it just looks like a light sitting there, but it's plugged in and it's hooked up to the factory switches inside. Kind of moving around to the center rear of the bed here. This is a version that has a storage drawer in it. There are two versions of this bed. You can get the low version, which the bed height here is actually a little bit lower, so there wouldn't be a drawer. But this particular bed has a drawer here and a 24-gallon water tank forward underneath the bed. So that gives us the real estate to hide all of this stuff under the bed. This is a lockable drawer, and it comes all the way out. Just got a couple tools and stuff in there. You can obviously put up whatever you want to in it. But I mean, you can see there's no dust in here. It's nice and tight. That also has a seal around it. And when you open this, you can see there's room along where your frame rails are. And with that water tank, we haven't hooked this up yet, but there's a hose that you can put a spigot right here, and your pump is mounted to the frame rail all the way forward. And that comes standard on this bed, but this isn't hooked up yet because we can run this anywhere. And if somebody wants us to build this camper out, we can run this to a spigot on the other side, or have one here and have it split off up there. So there's any number of things we can do. We just purposely left that unhooked and tucked away in the frame rail for right now. Your license plate can mount right here, and then your license plate lights are on the outside of the door, so you don't have to have any wiring run inside your drawer. And it allows just enough light to where you can see your license plate and you won't get a ticket. We relocated the tailgate camera to here, and there's a way you can actually tilt this. If you put a washer in behind here, you can aim this down, up or down, however you want, and you can access all of it back here. We kind of hide all of our wires nice and neat out of the way. We are using the factory hitch back here, so it retains the factory towing capacity and everything else. We just run a drop hitch and we can pull any trailer we could want. We mount our a bracket up here, and that's where we mount our trailer brake and harness. One little detail that you can see from back here is you can see that this here is the bed of the truck, and it has an L-track running front to back all the way up. The camper itself is separate from the bed. So you can undo these brackets right here. You can undo the four nuts right here on each bracket. There's 4 brackets, and connect a camper jack to each corner like a typical camper would. Lift that up, unplug one Anderson plug up front, and you can drive out from under this, and you now have an 8-foot working work truck bed, basically. Because it's extrusion, you can do, Dirtbox makes fold down bed sides, kind of like a Unimog. They have fold down bed sides that have a latch here on the corner on each side, and it's a really good positive latch. You can do a half canopy up forward. You can lay this out any way you want to because it's so modular. And you know, it's it's kind of the perfect answer for somebody that does need a work truck. You could put a full pallet of plywood up here, 8-foot long plywood, and you know, this truck wouldn't even feel it. It would be a really great work truck scenario. But the camper itself, because it has its own floor, can be fully kitted out as a livable structure and just remove it and put it back on as you see fit. So for the 24-gallon water tank that's underneath the bed between the frame rails, this is how you fill it. So you've got a little key here. You can undo this cap and fill it with water from wherever you want. It is not filtered, but it would be very easy to put, say, a Guzzle H2O or something in line, insulated, you know, things like that, right in line from this fill tube, and it would feed, you know, anything you wanted to go to. Right behind this is hollow, so you have your extrusion that runs down, and this is all connected and bolted straight to the extrusion. So what we've done is we are running an S1, Baja Design's S1 in a work scene up here. We did the same thing. We drilled a hole in behind it, and we hid our wiring down through the extrusion in the back and allowed it to come down behind this extruded post. So there's about 4 inches of space all the way across, and they have options for a diesel tank, for a diesel heater that can go in here. You could put another water tank in here if you wanted to. With the camper off, that's actually where you can mount your spare tire. So if you want it mounted like it is on the back of the camper, you can just move it forward in the bed and have it mounted up there. And the way we set up our lighting on the factory switches in this, all the lighting stays put. There's no lights on the camper itself, which you could do, but when you take the camper off, all of the lighting, that your work light and everything else, is still intact with the bed. So you can we're actually going to have another S1 tucked up underneath that shines down onto the bed. So if you're using it as a flatbed, you can have the same light shining from underneath out over the bed and have working light there as well. So since this truck is not deleted as a diesel truck, the fuel filler is right here. I just use a black cap instead of green. So diesel goes here, and we use the factory fill hose for the DEF fluid, and we just rerouted it with our own hose, and we made a little ABS bracket in here to mount it to. So it's real easy to get to. It's clean, it's out of the way. You can keep rags in here, whatever you want, gloves for filling up fuel if you like that. Just keep it all right in here, and it's out of the way. So when you have this closed, for one, nobody can mess with it. Not that somebody would, but it's just clean and tidy. So all you have is one fill port for your diesel right here. Cleans up the outside of the truck a little bit. It's just a detail, but it's nice and clean. We like it. Okay, so moving from the bed, we're going to move up into the camper now, so I can kind of show you some of the attributes of that as well. So since we mentioned that the bed is now an 8-foot tray and it was about 400 pounds, the weight of the camper itself is actually pretty light too. This entire camper is their lighter version, and it's their lowest profile version at the top. So the tent, when it's closed, is its thinnest version. And this one is about 330 pounds total. So as it sits, this is an empty shell as of right now. It is hooked up to power at the truck, and that's where the Anderson plug is between the camper and the cab. And that's giving us light on the hatches. Each hatch has 2 LED light strips that are dimmable. And that's another standard feature for these campers. So you have 2 light strips here, just a little blue light. You push that on and it comes on, and it's and you have one on either end. So a cool feature about these hatches, this hatch runs the full length of the camper. So usually when that happens, and it's the full height as well. So it's got this massive opening over here and unimpeded access to the side. But these hatches are strong. They have extrusions run throughout the inside. So you can pull up and down on one corner of it or try to twist it, and it's still going to hold its shape, and it's going to be very strong. They're also load bearing. So this one has L-track on the outside of it. The other side, we have 4 max tracks, full-size max tracks mounted to it, and it goes up and down just fine. The gas struts can be adjusted as well for the opening. So you can have it stop here, or you can have it stop a little bit higher, because you have 6 holes on this bracket that you can move the base of this gas strut up or down. So, and it's also gasketed all the way around, has the same kind of compression latches as the cabinet. One other thing that's nice though is this latch has a box that covers it on both of them. So when you have gear in here, you can close this and nothing can fall against your latch, stopping it from opening or closing. If there is something here, this cover will actually push it out of the way, so you don't have to worry about your latch catching onto something and not being able to close. Inside the camper, the whole floor is extrusion as well. Since it has its own floor, there's an air gap between the floor and the bed of the truck. You can also use that to hide plumbing, hide wiring. You can kind of put anything you want to under there and not have to worry about it being in the way. So when you do lift this thing off, there's nothing exposed. There's no wires exposed. Everything is run where it needs to go. And because this is extrusion, you've got 4 strips going front to back. You can mount your own floor in here as well. You could put a really nice wood floor if you wanted to. You can do anything you wanted in the floor of this. You could even put a heated floor if you wanted to. But these extruded tracks are in here on the bulkheads, forward and aft, and you can put cabinets. Dirtbox Overland has a large selection of different metal cabinets that are very lightweight, but they're very strong too. So once they're bolted down into these tracks, you can have slide out, drop down fridges, kitchen kits, cooking setups, anything you can imagine, microwave, anything inside this. And we have it, it's kind of nice to have it completely empty like this, so you can see how large it actually is as it's empty, because somebody may want to just leave it this way. We've been camping with it just like this, running our own little heater, and it's just fine. You can do a fold down bunk off the front if you wanted to. There's a switch panel on the other side, because you can put house batteries in this, and we can actually have a cabinet that covers the house batteries, and that's typically where it would go. So we can actually move that up or down and kind of anywhere we want that as well, controlling where the house batteries are. In this configuration right now, the bed is in the up position, so it's on a hinge, and there's a gas strut there as well. So when you push that up and out of the way, you can see how tall it is. I think it's 7 feet tall inside, probably even, yeah, it's probably about 7 or 8 feet tall inside. I have a camp chair set there, so you can kind of see how much real estate you actually have in here. And you know, it's for our sake, it works good, because when we go to shows, we can throw boxes and show stuff inside here and then just take it all out at the booth, and then we can have our living structure just empty like it is. So coming around here to the back, you can kind of see this is actually your entryway into the camper. So if you had cabinets and things like that on the sides, you can go in and out of this rear door. So your ladder is mounted to the inside or wherever you want it. Take it out, you can put it on a ladder mount right here, and it has a small hatch that you can get into. Same compression latch right here. Just turn that, swing it open, and you can go in and out from right here. This door design is going to change. It's going to be an extruded door, so there's going to be room for storage. Right now we have a Pelican case on here. This is a 1525 on a mounting company mount, and this could have, right now it's empty, but you could have recovery gear, tools, you know, whatever you want to in here, and you can just pull the pin and remove the whole thing from the back of the door, and maybe put another case on there, put a dry bag on there with one of these mounts on it, and carry whatever you want to on the door. Right next to that, we can mount shovel mounts. We can use tools, chainsaw mount, whatever you want to right on the camper here. Right for this one, we have our Demos Delta shovel, and that's, you know, a good layout of tools and things on the back. So recovery gear, anything like that, you can have right on the rear of the truck. Moving to the side, you can see where our spare is. This is a 40-inch tire, and you can see that it doesn't stick out past the side of the bed, and it doesn't impede the door. If we ran a 42, one of the new 42s, we can move that over just slightly, and it still would fit right in here and not go higher than the camper itself. All right, so this is a power box that is in current production, but this is going to be changing. Dirtbox Overland's been working with Baja Designs, and they have a touch panel that's going to replace these rocker switches here, and the box itself is going to change slightly. So the fuses won't look like this, because it'll be the S-Pod Bantam, and it has a different interface than a blade fuse like this. And the switch panel is actually going to be made for their touchscreen, Baja Designs touchscreen. This is a main power kill. You have USB and 12 volt right here. Your water tank float level is right here as well. It's just a standard gauge, which is very simple. You have 2 Anderson plugs for underneath here. So if you wanted to have house batteries, charging and operating other systems in here. You can plug all of that right in here and control all of that with your S-Pod that's going to be mounted right to this. So as you can see, I'm just sitting here in a standard camp chair, Helinox camp chair, and I've got plenty of room. I could have a little camp table here if I just wanted to leave this empty. I could have a camp table, I could have a cooler or a fridge. You know, pretty simple, you know, setup, cassette toilet or something right there. We could close these hatches and be out of the wind. You know, you could have 4 adults essentially sitting around a table right here. And this is with the bed in the up position. There's also a small hatch right here that I'll show you in a minute, and that can close this off completely. So if you bring the bed down and then you bring that hatch down, it closes off the down, you know, the lower portion. So if you had another bed down here or pets or something down here and you wanted to close that off, you could. And then there's a small hatch within the small hatch. So you can actually open that and run a fan through. If you had heat running down here, you could blow a fan up and through that into the top compartment. So it's almost like a two-story camper at that, you know, with that capability. So you can kind of see how tall it is. I'm 5'7". This goes way up over my head. There's another strip light in here, you know, a touch strip light up in the ceiling. And then to bring this down, you have a locking gas strut right here. You can just unlock it and pull this down. And you have your queen size bed. Really nice bed up here. So this is your standing space. So someone can still be asleep and you could get out of bed, come down here, get in and out of the camper very easily. If you had to use the bathroom or something, you can do all of that in here. You can get to a fridge still over here. There's enough room for someone to still sleep down here. You know, we were going to build a bunk that folds down off the forward bulkhead, so my daughter has a place to sleep there. Plenty of room for a family inside this thing. This is the other hatch that comes down. You can run this up and run this down. So if you're standing in here and you want to cook, you can set this down and have a table. So you can have a table right here and you can set up your cooking and utensils and everything right here. There's 12-volt plugs right here on just above this. We've got a wire run through the extrusion right up to that. And there's a pocket right there, so you could put drinks or, you know, whatever you want to right up in there. If you're going to be cooking, you can have spices or whatever you want there. And then this is on a gas strut as well. It just goes straight up and out of the way. And you have screens all the way around. This side here has the screen where you can see the screen is open here. And then there's a toggle right here that you can just zip this shut. The screen opens up completely as well, so you can completely pass through to the outside or reach outside. Starting from the top down, we're going to talk about the light placement and the roof rack and how we have it all set up on this truck, which is a little bit different, not drastically, but we're running the Front Runner Slimline 2 roof rack on this. We just have it mounted one slat forward on the factory or on the Front Runner foot rail, and it's just moved one slat forward because of the overhang of the camper, and it comes up and mates up perfect to the back of the roof rack this way. So what that does is it just allows us a little bit of space to run all of our harnesses for our LP4 lights that are up there. We've got 7 amber LP4s in a driving combo across the front of the roof rack. And the reason I like to have lights in different places. A lot of people think you have to run all of your lights all the time, which you can if you wanted to, but I like to have overlapping fields of light. So on this truck, we've got 4 LP9s on the front, Baja Designs LP9s on the front bumper. Those lights are down low. They throw a great deal of light and they all have crossing beams of light. So it's all overlapping side to side. There's 2 amber and 2 white. I typically use those at two different times, but it's nice to be able to throw all of them on at the same time. They have a high power and a low power. The low power is the bottom 3 diodes that you see, and that is one beam pattern. High power is all of the diodes, and that blends like a spot to like that's why it's called a driving combo. And then there's all 9 diodes in the front that come on. In high and low power, you have side LEDs that come on, and they come out here to the sides. They're not as bright They don't throw as, and they're not intended to throw light as far as these diodes do, but they overlap, and you can see off the shoulders of the road, and these all overlap across, side to side. So if you've ever held a flashlight to your face from your chin looking straight up, it casts shadows across your face. If you take that flashlight and you move it out, you are now changing the angle of that light hitting your face, and it removes those shadows. Same holds true to lights on a vehicle. If you have lights down low and they're going across the ground down low, and the ground isn't flat, you've got rocks or trees or ruts or anything like that, or just natural terrain changes, it'll cast a shadow across the ground, and that can change the speed that you're driving because you don't want to overdrive your lights. Well, if you're in, say, a desert scenario and you have lights going across the ground, whether you're going fast or slow, you can have light across the top of the truck too that intersects, and it creates an overlapping field of light. So you're now casting light across the ground, and then you're casting light down and trying to erase some of those shadows. And you can do that further down because you can aim your lights. So you can have that field of light cross where you want it, out further away or close up, as close as you can get it without the hood getting in the way. But that is usually intended for really far down the road. You can do light bars, you can do LP9s across the top, which is a ridiculous amount of light, which would be nice sometimes. But in this scenario, we just want it to kind of eliminate a lot of the shadows on the ground itself, whether you're going slow through mountain terrain or you're going to be cruising down through Baja on some natural terrain roads that you can carry some pretty good speed for a long distance. That kind of helps with that. Moving right inside the bumper here, we tend to run rock lights a little bit differently. These are S1, Baja designed S1s in a work scene, which is a really wide pattern. And I have it in a place to where if there's a lot of snow coming off the tire or mud or anything like that, it's not going to be covering the lens of the light. And it's actually shining down onto the ground in front of the tire, illuminating what's on the ground rather than in my fender well where it's just illuminating the suspension components and the tire, casting more shadows across the ground. So if I want a good usable light, I want it to actually hit the ground and create a fan of light out on the ground in front of the truck or in front of the tire where I can actually see where I need to drive. So also the other rock lights we're using, I have them on the center cross member under the truck, right about the B pillar. And I have one light shining forward on the cross member. It's up and out of harm's way, and it throws a really nice fan of light down on the ground. It's also in a work scene pattern. Right behind that is another S1 facing rearward. So that's going to illuminate the ground from the B pillar back all the way to the rear axle. And I can see what's on the ground without staring into a light. So if you've got a spotter on the ground outside looking underneath the truck, they can see the ground itself without looking into the light itself. So instead of running a ditch light bracket on this particular truck, which is actually a very functional spot to put a light, I've got my ditch lights, so to speak, up on the roof rack, kind of right above the A pillar. And that's a work scene as well. It's an S1 work scene, and that illuminates everything that would be kind of hiding in a shadow behind your A pillar. If you're sitting behind the wheel and you're looking out, your mirrors on these trucks and the A pillar can create a big blind spot. So if you've got a light just above that A pillar, you are illuminating everything else that you otherwise wouldn't normally be able to see. So that's nice when you're just, turning, in a tight spot on a trail or trying to find a good spot for camp at night. You can just throw those on, and it's a good wide beam pattern. Just one light will illuminate everything out, that you could ever want to see out around you, placed up above your head like that. And for our rock lights in the back of the truck, we're running the S1s as well, but I have them crossing each other. So one on the passenger side is aimed over towards the driver's side on the ground, and then vice versa on the driver's side aimed towards the passenger side. And because that beam pattern is so wide, it just floods the ground with minimal shadows. So even if you do get a shadow, say from a wiring harness or the hitch or something like that, you're kind of erasing that because the light from the opposite side is coming across. So you're really eliminating shadows altogether to where you wouldn't be able to see something. So front to back, you have a true 360-degree amount of light on the ground itself in the front and the rear of the axles themselves, and they all complement each other. So it's a really nice aerial light if you just want to sit at camp and have a light under the truck illuminating the ground around you, or you're actually trying to negotiate an obstacle on the trail. It's a nice spread of light. For the armor on the front of the truck, this is a Chassis Unlimited Octane series front bumper. There was a lot about this bumper that I liked, and I wanted to do some of my own things with it. And you can kind of see what we did with this. On the corners with the AEV fenders, you can see how high this is. The factory bumper drops down to about here. So we've gained all of this approach angle. Not that we're going to be climbing something this steep, but it just opens up the front end and it creates less room for something to hit it and tear it off. So we actually trimmed this off and we boxed it back in, welded another plate back in to match the radius of the AEV fender. And then moving around, you can see it's got the factory sensors in it. That is from Chassis Unlimited. We kind of closed, this is for like lights. You could put different lights and things in here. We closed it up with some ABS to kind of just clean up the look. And we just popped a couple holes and did some fender washers and stuff like that on there to kind of make it look a little nicer. Kind of moving around a little bit. If you look closely, I actually took the Baja Designs LP9 bracket and I spun it around backwards and I notched it. I trimmed the back to fit around the grill so it fits really nice and high and tight close to the grill. And we popped our own holes in the top of the bumper, evenly spaced, so we could just run the LP9s right on the top of the bumper. You can run a square light right down in here as well. You could run a squadron or something like that. You've got a couple windows. I like to be able to see into the bumper. So on this truck, we're actually running a ComeUp 12,500 pound winch. And I would like to run a larger winch sometimes. I honestly don't have a need to with this truck. I cut a window open here so I can actually see the drum. I like to see my winch drum, and I have a Baja Designs rock light here. It's actually a dome light because it's got a button on it. So right inside here, if it is dark out and I need to run my winch, I can reach in, hit the button, and illuminate the drum so I can stand way back away from the truck and I can still see what's going on with the drum. If it's building up on one side or the other, there's a knot, there's some debris in there, whatever it is, I can see that from a distance. We're running the Factor 55 Ultrahook on this. You'll see I run those on a lot of vehicles. You can put a 3/4 inch bow shackle here. You can put a soft shackle here. You can run both of those in the hook itself with a lockable gate, and your pin to lock the gate is right here. You could take that out, put it in here, lock your gate shut. And this also lays flat up against the Haas fair lead. So it's a very good usable tool. We tend to run those a lot. All right, so for wheels and tires on this, we're running the Method 703 bead grip wheel, and this one's the 17 by 8.5. So that wheel is a 4 3/4 inch backspace and a 0 offset. So with the 40-inch tire, it actually does really, really well. It's a 40 by 13.5 by 17 Toyo open country mud terrain, and honestly, the tire does so well, and it mounts and balances so well. I don't even have wheel weights on these tires. It runs smooth enough as it is. There's no reason to even put it on the tire balancer at the shop. So all 4 tires on this truck mounted nice enough on the Method race wheels without any need for wheel weights on all 4 corners. So I'm pretty impressed with that. So in order to fit this 40-inch tire on here, we are running the AEV fenders, and you'll see these a lot on the AEV Prospectors. So this axle is not pushed forward. AEV does have a kit that pushes your axle forward about 2 inches or 2.5 inches, something like that, which would be nice if you wanted to run, say, a 40 like this or a 42-inch tire. You would want to run that system. This Carli system is the same one we used when we had a 37-inch tire on this truck and the factory fender. But I didn't want to change any of the suspension at all, and I've done a little bit of research, and I'd seen some other people do this, but you can run the 40-inch tire on here, and we've been rock crawling this thing around out here, and it's doing great. It's doing amazing. I heard it rub a little bit, but it's because the inner fender liner is soft and it moves, and if it touches, usually when we make our ABS fender liners, we can heat mold them and push them further back up into the fender to where they won't touch anything. So I believe if we were to make our own inner fender liner, we could make it so this tire doesn't touch anything at all. Right now, all it's doing is touching this thin plastic piece that's right here, and that doesn't concern me one bit. So very impressed with how we can fully articulate this truck and not have anything scrub or rub unless we're at an extreme turn and we're really hanging one of the tires off of the ground, which we've done. So other than that, I'm very, very happy with the fitment of the AEV fender, the functionality of it, and then the size and capability of this tire on such a large truck. So for suspension on this truck, we are running the Carli Dominator 3 1/4 system. So it's they say it's about 3 1/4 inches of lift in the front, but we run our own leaf springs in the rear on these trucks. We get every set of springs made custom for the truck that they're going to be on, and they are a progressive rate spring. So these are made by Alcan spring, and this truck we're actually running the stock spring rate. It is a 1-ton capacity truck, so we are running a stock spring rate because that's good enough in most cases. You can also see that we're running Carli's long travel airbag on this because this truck did need to pull a very heavy trailer, a big trailer, and with a camper on it, I could have a fully loaded camper, then put my 28-foot enclosed trailer on it, and if I needed to put a little bit more spring rate into it, I could put a small amount of air in the airbags and bring the back of the truck back up a little bit. That helps the truck balance itself really well when you're towing, and you don't lose any suspension travel out of that. With this particular airbag, you can get full articulation with this and not have to worry about tearing the bags apart or anything like that. They are designed to be a long travel bag. We're also running the 3-inch Kings with the Carli Spec in the valving. We typically run our own valving on trucks with a high speed or a low speed compression adjuster. But with this truck, I wanted to just leave it with the Carli valving, and it handles really, really well. There are a couple little changes I would like to make, but it's not a big deal. The truck handles like a dream, loaded or not. So this truck, being designed from the factory to haul a very heavy load and carry a heavy payload, this truck stock has over 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. I didn't really see the need to have to regear the differentials like we typically do for some of the Toyota trucks that we build. Even though this truck is running a 40-inch tire, it is calibrated with the AEV ProCal module, and the speedometer is accurate, but the truck really doesn't feel the tire size at all, even with a load on it. It does really good. I average about anywhere from 12.5 to 13.5 miles per gallon on the highway, and about 12 miles per gallon in the city going to and from the shop. So it does really well. And then the Banks PedalMonster is a huge help with throttle response and just daily drivability in the city. As a lot of you know, this Cummins motor is a very strong motor, but the factory tune on this thing is just dangerous, and the lag is incredibly too long. So by putting that PedalMonster in there, it takes a lot of that away and just makes the truck way more drivable. So performance and mechanical gearing, we didn't really do hardly anything to it. The truck has just been great all around for that with this tire size. And like I said, with the suspension on this truck is the Carli Dominator system. We're running all of the options for the Carli Dominator, which is the Torsion Sway Bar, and with the Torsion Sway Bar links, the Carli coil spring, the front diff guard, and upper and lower Carli steering stabilizers. That helps a lot, with the size of the tire. Whether you're running a 37 or a 40, it's really nice because you can actually tune that. Also, part of the Carli Dominator system is one of the options is the fabricated radius arms. When you look at these radius arms compared to the factory ones, you can definitely see that they are incredibly strong and well built. They are also clearanced to allow the tire size of a 40 or 42-inch tire to turn without hitting the radius arm. That also has a lot to do with the dimensions of the wheel itself. So that wraps up the walk around video on the final rendition of this truck. But a couple very important things I wanted to mention is you do not have to have a 1-ton truck to get this style of camper. This design is actually set up for everything from a 5-foot bed Tacoma or a Gladiator or anything very small like that. You would actually, for a 5-foot bed truck, you'd be getting a 6-foot tray, which actually adds to your living space. So this exact same setup scaled down to fit a 5-foot bed truck, we can do all of the same stuff. Now this is the lightest setup they have and the lowest profile they have. This truck, I was able to fit in an 8-foot parking deck at SEMA. So I was able to drive right in and actually have some room to spare on a truck this large with the camper on it. So that being said, the other version of this camper is the Genesis camper. That is a little bit taller in the front because it actually, when it deploys, instead of it being a wedge and hinging at the front, it comes up vertically about 16 inches and then it pitches, and you have a small window in the front. That is a true 4-season camper. It's an insulated fabric all the way around with the same screened-in windows that you see, but it's a kind of a more of a luxurious feel in the inside with the soft touch panels and things like that. So we can do any number of variations on basically any truck bed that you can imagine. We've got some pretty neat projects coming up for some people, and we can integrate other campers to this flatbed as well. We've got a lot of flexibility with that as well, with it being extruded. So there's a lot of benefit to that. So kind of recapping a little bit, this truck is for sale. By the time you see this video, hopefully it'll be sold and we can move on to the next project for next year. But if not, you can find all the details on our website at the link below, and also with any Dirtbox product, Dirtbox Overland product, whether it's the flatbeds, just a piece of kit for the inside, there's a coupon code that you'll see in the description, and you go to follow that coupon code, or just mention it when you call us at the shop, and we can apply a 5% discount to anything through Dirtbox. So you can imagine what a camper like this would cost. You take 5% off of that. That's a pretty considerable savings. So definitely take advantage of that. They did give us authorization to use that, and we are the only ones using that. So give us a call at the shop and mention this. You can find us at tavllc.com, on Instagram at tavllc. Appreciate you watching, and definitely hit us up.